recording, so we have a record of this. We'll put it on our website, so folks can go back and look at it later. But so with that, just want to welcome everyone to our 2024 quarter one stakeholder meeting of the Capital District Clean Communities Coalition. Just going through the agenda real quick, we have, we'll just start out quickly with some introductions after this, run through the agenda. We will have a feature presentation from Sean Palladino of the Albany Parking Authority on overcoming hurdles of public EV charging infrastructure. And then we're gonna kind of as the first quarterly meeting each year, we try to go through kind of our contract deliverables for the coalition at the beginning of the year, go through kind of the projects that we have planned. And then we just kind of have some other clean communities updates, some other projects that we're working on that we want to kind of touch base with everyone on that. And then to kind of round things out, we always go around the table and let folks kind of chime in on their latest projects on electric vehicles and alternative fuels, all that good stuff. So just to start, again, introductions. I'm Jacob Beeman, Senior Transportation Planner here at the Capital Region Transportation Council and Director of the Capital District Clean Communities Coalition. We'll go around the table inside here. Tess?
Yeah, my name is Tess Straushak, relatively new staff here at the Transportation Council. I've been here for 2 months. We'll go a little more into what I do here later, but I've been working with Jacob. I'm the staff on the Capital District Clean Communities team.
Dave?
I'm David Bortwell. My company makes 100% solar powered electric boats. We have the latest one coming off the production line and going into the water as soon as the ice is out in Maine.
Thanks, Dave. And then I'm going to run through the folks online just for kind of for time's sake. And if I don't know what organization you're with, maybe I'll ask you. So I'm just going to go from the top of my list here. Ethan Warren with CDTA, Haley Balkanoff, CDRPC, Jim Bright. Jim, do you want to, I'm not sure which organization you're with, if you want to maybe type in the chat or chime in, just so we've got it.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm with NIPA. Just saw the tie-in with EV charging and wanted to listen in.
That's great. Thanks, Jim. Happy to have you here. Josh Drainoff, CDRPC, Lawrence Darko. Lawrence, it's New York State DEC, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thanks, Lawrence. Sean Palladino, again with Albany Parking Authority, and Tara Donadio with CDRPC. So that's who we have online. And with that, we can move into our feature presentation. Sean, I'm going to hand it over to you if you've got slides. I believe I have it set up properly for you to share.
Let me try that. All right, can everybody see that?
We can.
Great.
I'm just going to. Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sean Palladino. I'm the Acting Executive Director of the Albany Parking Authority. I'm here today to speak with you all about overcoming hurdles of public EV infrastructure and the APA's involvement with EV infrastructure projects and implementation over the past 6 years or so. The Albany Parking Authority's first EV infrastructure project took place in 2018. It included the installation of 11 level 2 EV charging units across 3 parking garages. The installation of these units created the first public charging infrastructure within the city of Albany and included 5 charging spaces at our Green Hudson garage, 5 spaces at our Riverfront garage, and 9 spaces at our Quackenbush garage. Funding for these projects was provided by NIPA's 5 Cities Energy Program, Race to the Top funds. The total project cost was approximately $350,000. All revenue generated by these charging stations is retained by the Albany Parking Authority. Some installation and maintenance hurdles, code compliance, electrical service. Some installation hurdles include code compliance for the parking garages. 2 out of our 3 garages are 40+ years old, and the other is 24 years old this year. Since the construction of all 3 garages, code compliance has changed. We were fortunate to be code compliant with our newest garage, but our other 2 garages were not. It was a challenge bringing these 2 buildings electrical spec up to compliance levels that was needed for the installations, but we were able to overcome that. ADA compliance. When we asked about ADA compliance in relation to EV chargers at the time, no one really had the answer to what that was or what would be required. So we reached out to our ADA compliance expert at CT Mail, who informed us that we did in fact need to have one single ADA compliant charging space for each group of ports that were installed within each garage. These spaces would be in addition to the required amount of non-EV charging ADA compliant spaces that already exist at each location. Third-party customer service. When we first got our level 2s, we opted in for a 4 to 5 year warranty program that included parts and labor. Right off the bat, we identified a problem with customer service when making inquiries about equipment and back-end issues. The customer service responses tended to be very generic with some very basic troubleshooting questions. This was fine for, simple issues. However, the more complex problems, it would take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks or 1 to 2 months to have a problem resolved. For any issues outside of basic, customer service would require a tech to come out possibly twice to do an on-site troubleshooting session. The real problem happened after the warranty was expired, and we were responsible for all costs associated with the repair of the level 2 chargers. For example, we recently had a unit that was not communicating properly. We did all the level 1 and 2 troubleshooting with the customer service, and after those calls we were informed that further on-site troubleshooting could cost approximately $1,200. At this point, if there was a hardware problem and a tech had the part on hand, the repair would be the cost of the visit plus the cost of the part. But if they did not have the part with them, the repair would require another site visit, which would be an additional visit charge plus the cost of the part and possible labor fees. So the cost of these types of repairs could run up quickly for a single issue, costing anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 for a unit that originally cost between $6,000 to $8,000. For this issue, one of our staff in charge of the EV maintenance happened to turn the power off, which rebooted the unit. And after that, the charger was fine, but a hard boot was never mentioned by the customer service rep. So, we did have some frustrations on our end for that. Parts for the EV units are expensive. I mean, a cable can run around $300 to $400, charging plugs around $900, and the cost pretty much goes up from there. The more units you have installed and active, the higher and higher your repair costs will be. And the repairs and warranty. Our idea in the beginning was to have these EVs be self-sustainable. Cost-wise, they were going to pay for themselves and make enough money for us to put aside for future repairs and replacement. But then COVID happened. Once COVID hit, we couldn't get a grip on usage. The warranty was whittling away on chargers that weren't really getting used, causing our self-sustaining plan to fall apart. Then people started gradually coming back to work. The chargers were getting used again, but they were now out of warranty. And then we had our first expensive repair of $1,000, which included a wire and a plug. When we reached into our EV piggy bank, there was no money to cover the repair expense, and the money had to come out of our, out of the company's other fundings. We didn't understand what the problem was. usage seemed to be normalizing, but after a deeper look at our electrical bill, we found that energy costs had doubled since we installed the units in 2018, and we realized that we were only making 1 penny per kilowatt hour. In order to make our units self-sustaining again, we had to create a formula to stay 8% above what we were being charged per kilowatt hour. This seems to be the current standard at around 25 to 27 cents per kilowatt hour. The city also adopted that same rate once the information was shared. In doing so, we were finally able to fill that piggy bank again almost instantly. We do anticipate the rates to increase, as I'm sure you all do. Expansion limitations and our future hurdles. When expanding the installation of any EV charge units for us results in limitations due to power needs. We're talking about larger electrical service upgrades, costly upgrades that we touched on earlier. Even though level 2s don't consume as much as the DC fast chargers, our intake for more output in 2 out of 3 garages in order to accommodate this leaves us somewhat limited to how we go about expanding. The changing in safety codes and the changing of safety codes and EV fire prevention response kind of go hand in hand. As a number of EVs grow, we're starting to identify more safety concerns such as EV car fires. EV fires are much different than regular car fires or fires in general due to the chemical reaction in the battery. They tend to burn much longer and at a much higher temperature, making it difficult for fire departments to combat. Not only that, but we hear that towing companies may have to tow EVs in a special way because a lot of EVs can't be towed as a normal car. Tow yards may also be required to have safety barriers in place, separating the EVs from the rest of the yard or from each other in general. Fire departments are looking into ways to inform the public on tips for do's and don'ts of EV car fires. Additionally, fire departments are looking into ways to combat EV car fires with EV fire suppressor blankets and trying to find the funding source for those blankets. The more EVs, the more need for EV car fire safety. Our DC fast chargers. In 2023, 3 DC fast charging stations were installed on the first level at Park Albany's Quackenbush Garage. These units were the first DC fast chargers installed within the city of Albany, New York, and included 1 350 kilowatt charging space and 3 150 kilowatt charging spaces. Funding for the project was provided by NYPA and covered equipment and installation, future maintenance, and associated utility costs. All revenue generated by the charging stations is retained by NYPA. Thank you, Jim. Many of the hurdles for the installation of these chargers were the same as the installation of our level 2 chargers, but for this particular install, we needed to upgrade our electrical service that included a transformer replacement. So to complete the installation, our building needed to run off of a generator for about a month for, grid to be able to complete that install. Space constraints. The charging units are large. They're large as it is, but most people don't realize how large the equipment to power these units actually are as well. Being an authority, we're not allowed to own land per se. So a lot of our land we have to lease, either from the state or the city or others. And our footprint is typically very tight to the building in most places. So trying to find real estate to put all the equipment on without taking away revenue generating spaces is a hurdle for us. Maintenance hurdles, we don't have all the info, but I can say that these units are being worked on quite a bit. I mean, it's not a surprise given the size and the output of these guys. Future hurdles, space limitations, like I said, are a problem for us. I could see it being a problem for other locations downtown Albany as well. I mean, we are pretty tight. But the usage, I mean, it seems to be going well. The units are constantly being used and attracting a different clientele than the level 2s. Users seem to be seeking out these type of chargers, immediately leaving after their charge is complete. And then through some shared data with NYPA, the chargers are getting used much more than what the authority anticipated. So that's great. Our Washington Avenue lot, we're looking forward, the Albany Parking Authority is currently planning to install DC fast chargers in parking lot 3 located at 327 Washington Ave. The installation of the units is scheduled for the summer of 2024 and includes 3 charging units. Again, the funding is sourced by NYPA through the federal infrastructure funds. Installation and maintenance hurdles, again, EV infrastructure restrictions from DOT land, transferring the land from DOT to the city of Albany. Space constraints due to the size of the charging units and power supply. Again, all revenue collected for these charging stations will be retained by NYPA. So the next step for expanding EV infrastructure within Albany is the installation of on-street EV chargers. The APA is currently working with partners on the installation of on-street EV chargers at 2 locations. One is in a commercial area and one is adjacent to a residential area. As a part of the project, each location would have 2 EV charging spaces designated for public use. Some installation and maintenance hurdles that we're seeing for now is, again, limitations on where the APA can install, an on-street EV charger, mitigating the reduction in standard on-street parking spaces, enforcing violations on vehicles parked in EV charging spaces which are not charging. We have been discussing idle fees. We're aware that these idle fees can be turned on. But I think the more chargers we get on street, we'll have to evaluate that and see how that will go for us. So planning for the future. EVs are much heavier than regular vehicles, which can create a problem in our parking facilities if we have to have a large expansion beyond grade level. Most garages now have a specified point load, which means how many pounds or tons one specific space can handle. If the point load is exceeded, it can result in damage and injuries. In order to prevent that, in current garages, we would have to allocate 2 spaces per EV and or allocate spaces underneath the EV spaces for structural support. Either way, we end up losing spaces in the garages. When planning for the future, we would take these issues into account in order to accommodate a large expansion, of course. Conversation of EV charging in parking facilities has become standard, whereas 4 years ago, it wasn't even a thought, just to give you an idea of how fast-paced EV expansion is going. And that's all I really have. I know I kind of rifled through that. So I didn't know if anybody had any questions.
No, Sean, that's great. I think it's good to hear the hurdles, the barriers, because so often we hear only the good side, depending on where the information is coming from. So I always like to hear the whole side of things. Does anybody have questions for Sean? Well, I've got a couple, Sean, if no one else does. First one, for the ADA compliance, you said 1 ADA space per bank. Do you know if that was just because of the number of total spaces that you had in your banks, or regardless, whether you had a 4-space EV charger or a 16-space, you would only need the 1, or was it?
There is a standard, in general, of how many EVs or how many ADA spaces you're supposed to have in a facility. But when it comes to these, we were just told that, adding 1 to these, each facility, when installing these is just a good idea to do so.
Mhm.
So moving forward, I think what we would do is add that into our calculation when doing ADA spaces. I mean, it's hard because, you know, you have to add it in. It doesn't get used as much as a regular space. So, you know, it creates, you know, somewhat, some kind of flack in being able to, you know, squeeze in an ADA space. You know, they're very, you know, there's specific rules that, you know, and the ADA spaces are typically, you know, 1.5 to 2 spaces larger than a normal space. And, you know, being in a confined area, it's tough to meet that accommodation.
Yep.
But we managed to do it.
Josh, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So thank you, Sean, for this information. This was very helpful. I was curious about the warranty for the level 2 stations. So once the manufacturer warranty kind of expired, have you looked at, you know, doing a service contract with a you know, electrical contractor or someone that can service the stations other than the manufacturer itself? And then my second question is regarding the uh, charging fees when you have people that they have a full charge by noontime after plugging in the morning, but then they're still there till 5 o'clock at night. So I was curious if you've experimented with, you know, doing a kind of a sitting fee, if you will.
Right. So, for your first question, I haven't looked beyond the manufacturer's extended warranty plan. But looking into different electricians to provide that service isn't a bad idea. So I will definitely have my team look into that. You know, they're all still fairly new to us, so we haven't really, you know, looked into beyond the manufacturer's recommendations. And secondly, yes, so the duration, the time restraint, yeah, that can be a problem. We found that an 8-hour duration seems to be the sweet spot. You know, for most commuters, you know, an 8-hour day at work, you know, they come into work, charge all day, and then they can leave for, you know, for the level 2s. But we do get people who are, you know, charging or using the spaces much longer than that. Our current standard is just to give these folks warnings to let them know, hey, like, you're not to be in these spaces longer than 8 hours, or, you know, your charge has ended, you're supposed to move. But like I mentioned, I do want to look into idle fees. It's, you know, being a public entity, it's a little hard to add on items like that without having some kind of a standard to go by, but it is something that we're exploring.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, I had one more for you. So the on-street charging, whose power are you tying into typically, or looking to tie into for an on-street? Like, would each charger have its own meter and you're just tying in, or is it trying to find like an existing facility or something that you can be tying into? That's what I've always.
Right. From what I understand, and this is a big problem. From what I understand currently, because we're just kind of peppering these around, each unit would have its own meter. You know, you could find power through the maintenance, usually through the maintenance strips in the street, but it would still require a meter. Now, if you were able to have a whole bank of these on a whole block, I would assume that 1 meter would cover that bank. But yeah, you're right. I believe it's 1 meter per unit at the moment.
Okay. Good to know. Any other questions for Sean? I'm hearing none. So thank you, Sean. Really appreciate the information. I think that's great. And like I said, we will have, you know, this is recorded. We'll have this online with our meeting minutes. So if anybody wants to go back and check in on this and you know, kind of remember what Sean covered, it will be there. So again, appreciate it, and, you're welcome to stay on, Sean, and listen to the rest of the meeting, or if you gotta jump, go ahead, but,
I appreciate you guys having me, and it was nice meeting everybody. Hope to see you guys soon. Thank you.
Absolutely,
Sean.
thank you. Okay. So with that, we will move into our second agenda item, our 2024 Clean Cities contract. Just want to make sure those of you online that you guys can see the slide that says Clean Cities contract. Just want to make sure that it's moving through. Got the thumbs up. Okay, thanks everyone. Okay, so as many of you probably know, you've been on these meetings and are familiar with the coalition, but each year we renew our contract with the U.S. Department of Energy for our Clean Cities work. And again, Clean Cities is kind of the more general national name for what our Clean Communities Coalition is. And we're actually going to talk about that a little more later because there's kind of a rebrand going on. But so each year we get a contract from DOE to perform a certain number of tasks in different kind of topic areas. So those kind of three main topic areas are project management and administration, which is basically just covering kind of like all the paperwork side of things. The second piece is alternative fuel price tracking activities. So there's a lot of work that we do kind of in the background where we're collecting data on alternative fuels in the region, price of the fuel itself, of fueling infrastructure and vehicles, and then our technology and integration efforts. So I've broken out the 3.0 tasks. That's kind of how we refer to them. These are kind of more of the outward facing activities and programs that we do each year. So I'm just going to go a little bit more and kind of talk about what we plan on doing this year. And, you know, really kind of a big piece of it too is, you know, we create a work plan at the beginning of each year. The contract here starts on April 1st and runs through March 31st of 2025. But really, this is kind of always in draft form. It's in flux. You know, we need to submit to DOT what we kind of want to do, what we think we're going to do for the year. But as with many things, you know, if a new event or a new project kind of pops up in the meantime, we're always able to kind of, you know, bring that in and make sure that, you know, we can work on all the projects that we need to or that our stakeholders are asking us to. So the first one, market development events, workshops, and meetings. You know, the types of events that we're able to work on under this task are kind of ride and drives, vehicle technology and demonstration. So, you know, getting vehicles here or, you know, on site somewhere for our stakeholders to kind of get their hands on and see. And then kind of site visits and tours. So if there was any kind of unique facilities that we could bring stakeholders to and visit, those types of things would also fall in this category. So right now for 2024, we've got a couple of projects that we're starting to work on for the coming year. First one being Earth Day event and social media campaign. We have plans to participate right now in the City of Glens Falls Earth Day event. So we're putting together some kind of materials to promote Earth Day at that event, and also trying to put together some kind of social media campaign materials just to kind of promo Earth Day and you know, spread some knowledge about all fuels and you know, how that can be beneficial for the environment. Number two, right now we're working on hosting an electric vehicle landscape equipment demonstration event. We're working with the folks over at CDRPC, so some of you on the call here. And the idea for that event is getting folks, you know, tailoring it really towards state and kind of municipal, you know, operations and maintenance crews that could be, eligible to get funding, through the Clean Energies Community Program. So we want to have an opportunity to get these types of vehicles on site, where folks can kind of really, test drive them and actually, mow the lawn, mow grass. And, hoping to get, a couple different vendors there to get, some different electric mower options, as well as electric, leaf blowers, weed whackers, any number of kind of electric landscape equipment. So we're working on that. Actually, don't have a solid date, but we're hoping to have that sometime in May, when the sun is out and the grass is green. Hosting clean transportation focus group meetings. This is something that we want to do a little bit kind of in coordination with the MPO as well. We're currently updating our long-range plan at the MPO, and feel that it would be appropriate to kind of get folks' opinions on clean transportation. And, it would be a good opportunity here to maybe mingle some of our clean community stakeholders who might have some different perspectives from maybe our more typical municipal representatives that are on the MPO side of things. So the idea there would be to host some type of just kind of meeting, listening session, maybe to get some feedback on folks' opinions on kind of the long-term goals of clean transportation. And then participating in an OGS EV fleet show. Right now, we've been talking with folks over at OGS. They're this spring, not sure off the top of my head, I think there's a date that's tentatively settled on. But this last year, there was an event where OGS kind of hosted it for again, state fleet managers to just talk about the benefits of electric vehicles and those electric vehicles that are on the state contract and things like that. So we plan on at least having a table there at that event at the plaza in the next few months. So again, those are kind of what's on the on our draft list for things that we'll be working on under that task this year. But again, always happy to hear different options if folks on the call have ideas or events that they want us to help with or host. Always happy to hear ideas. Any questions on our market development workshops and meetings? Hearing none. So the next subtask is our corridor and community alternative fuel vehicle infrastructure planning. So these types of activities are typically kind of like regional alt fuels planning or assisting with kind of state and federal maybe incentive programs or corridor plans and things like that. So right now on our kind of to-do list for this year, first one being reviewing our existing zero emission vehicle plan. Some of you may remember, I believe it was finalized in early 2020. We do have a capital region zero emission vehicle plan where we kind of evaluated the current conditions of EV charging and electric vehicle adoption at that time. In 4 years, we know that a lot of things have changed. So we want to kind of take a look at that document, do a little bit of a desktop review and see what should or needs to be updated and, likely maybe actually tackling that update in the later part of this year or maybe into next year. But we want to first kind of do a screen to see exactly, how that document could be updated. Kind of along those same lines, taking a look at existing infrastructure gaps and identifying opportunities to support EV adoption or EVSE deployment. This is something that we're kind of always doing, but maybe want to take a look at it in a little bit more of a formal way. Again, this could be kind of wrapped into our long-range plan update at the MPO because that is something that I think we want to include in that document as well. Just taking a look at the greater kind of situation of EVs in the region and where we can provide support. Along with that, possibly developing some updated EVSE planning guidance. It's something that we've looked at in the past with, best practices for zoning and kind of building codes, as well as maybe streamlining like the application process for installing EVSEs. So there's a lot of good best practice kind of documentation out there. And I think that we would want to kind of reference that and possibly package it in a better way for our members. And then finally, supporting our climate pollution reduction grant activities. We talked about this at our last meeting in December. CDRPC is working on that CPRG grant. And we've been providing some support in providing data and helping identify strategies in transportation. And we believe that we'll continue to do that, at least to some degree, through this project here. Any thoughts or comments on our corridor and community planning activities?
I just wanted to mention, this is Tara from CDRPC. The EV plan update is very interesting to us. We were actually talking about having data from that, like to just kind of see the adoption of EVs in the capital region and how that's increased. And you mentioned exactly what we were talking about, which is the last 4 years, it's probably exploded, but we'd love to see some more numbers. So we're pretty excited. You're going to be diving into that, and that data will be helpful for our CPRG climate action plan as well.
Is there, I guess I haven't heard a lot about that lately, Tara. Is there like a timeline that like you would be needing certain data or would like to see it, or is that something that will be ongoing kind of throughout the year?
Great question. So we are just diving into the greenhouse gas inventory update for this year, which wasn't a part of the early priority climate action planning process. So that's kind of our focus at the moment, but then we're also kind of at the same time diving into the comprehensive climate action plan, which will kind of build out some of the priority objectives and some of that stuff. But I think that data will kind of inform the EV adoption data will inform some of those goals that we want to set. So I would say, your timeline seems reasonable. By the end of the year, I think we'll be kind of gathering data all year. So, but we'll keep in touch on that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
This is David. Do you have anything in terms of the CPA that you're doing explicitly for climate leadership?
Was that towards Tara or me?
Tara.
Tara, did you?
Yeah, so this plan is funded by the EPA. So we are incorporating the state's climate act into the climate action plan that we're doing, as basically the goals that we're using. But in some cases, I think we can be more aggressive. Although really what we're trying to do here is just kind of take a snapshot of all the work that's happening in the capital region. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
A little bit.
Okay, so the next piece, our technical assistance and fleet coaching tasks. This would be really kind of providing direct technical assistance to a fleet or end user of a technology. Usually this task, it just kind of comes up throughout the year if folks give us a call and are interested in, maybe even, assisting with applying for a grant or something like that. So right at this point, we don't have anything that's lined up in terms of technical assistance. But our services are available to do things like reviewing alt fuel equipment specs, or helping provide trainings for end users of that technology. Really kind of any type of problem solving or educational events that we could assist a stakeholder with. I also think, in the past, providing some assistance with developing a total cost of ownership analysis, if a fleet is looking at purchasing some new electric vehicles and want to maybe quantify, what buying 3 new Chevy Bolts really costs compared to buying 3, Chevy Equinoxes that they used to purchase, and quantifying maybe what that upfront, cost increase for the vehicle, might actually shake out to be over the course of, the life of that vehicle when you factor in the reduced maintenance and fuel consumption. So things like that, we're available for technical assistance, and always happy to, hear what folks need and see if we can, help in any way. And finally, our technical training and education task. This is really, focused on providing classroom training type events, and webinars and kind of hands-on demonstration, for a very specific, end user. So what we've been seeing a lot of other, coalitions doing in this is providing, training for electric vehicle technicians, and or potentially, electric vehicle, kind of fire and safety trainings as well. And we heard Sean mention that that's, kind of a big piece of, or a barrier for installing charging infrastructure as well. So right now, we've actually been working with, we've kind of had conversations with a couple different providers of this training. But right now, we're coordinating with Hudson Valley Community College to hopefully develop a training opportunity that would be targeted towards, municipal fleet technicians that might not be, typically getting this training, or maybe just the lack of that training has been a barrier for, the fleet to go ahead and make that first purchase because maybe there's a little bit of an unknown. So we're currently working on this right now and hoping to have, some type of training event, hopefully by sometime this summer. All the details aren't worked out, but this is something that I would hope, or I welcome kind of feedback on, if others have heard, is this, are people kind of chomping at the bit to get this type of training, or is it kind of available through other opportunities? But, this is one that we're excited about. I will say the big piece, typically events that we host here at the coalition, are free, right? We're working with others, vendors and we're providing information at no cost typically. These types of training do provide, or do need, payment, because they're more specific, they're more technical. So our goal here is to hopefully coordinate it in a way where maybe it's at a little bit of a discounted rate compared to, if a community or someone just were to go ask Hudson Valley or one of these providers to just, hey, I've got 5 techs that need training. The idea would be that we're hoping that we can provide it at somewhat of a discounted rate. Josh, I see you've got a question.
Second, that I think this would be helpful. Some of the communities that we work with, they do a lot of their work on their vehicles in-house. And so some of their apprehension in, getting into the EV sphere is not having the staff to be able to work on them. And so I think this would certainly be helpful in trying to, boost the confidence in some of the local municipalities. So.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. And I'm, definitely plan on touching base with you and all the CDRPC folks to, once we get a date nailed down. I think you guys have a lot of great contacts that, throughout the region, even extending outside the region a little bit, that we would be able to bring folks in for this. So I think that'd be great.
Just adding here that the Hudson Valley just did one of these trainings, and the Hudson Valley Regional Council promoted it, and actually some folks from the Capital Region wanted to go, is what we heard from them, but didn't want to travel. So they were like, is there going to be anything local? So just noting that there's already excitement there, I think, for something like this.
Where did they host That it was outside of the region?
It was in, I have to look it up. I want to say maybe Poughkeepsie or even further south than that. And I don't know who did the training, but there was definitely a lot of interest.
No, that's great. And yeah, we've talked with them and they've noted that they've worked with DOT and I think a couple other state fleets. So yeah, having something specifically for municipal, and the idea would be that we're, you know, at least right now in talks, you know, it would be at Hudson Valley,
Yeah.
so somewhat local.
Hopefully, just from discussions with them, it does cost something for people to send their text there, but they have, you know, a great facility and a lot of equipment to do hands-on training, which is something that a lot of other providers of this kind of training can't offer. So hopefully people see it as a worthy investment and also just something interesting and not necessarily just sitting in a classroom all day. Should be good, should be great.
Any other thoughts or questions on that? Hearing none. So with that, real quick, I'm gonna go through a couple other coalition updates. So this one, I'm sure many of you have seen emails coming out from Tess. We're kind of running up against the end of our deadline here for our annual reporting. Each year, we report annual reductions in greenhouse gas emission reductions in fuel consumption to the Department of Energy for our region. You know, so that's when we're reaching out and asking folks for information on the alternative fuel vehicles that they're using. And, you know, using that information, DOE can kind of roll that up and give us projected reductions in gas gallon equivalents and greenhouse gas emission reductions based on our use of alternative fuels. So we're asking for the data to be due by tomorrow. But we do have our final reporting to the DOE isn't until April 14th. So we do have 2 weeks to kind of clean everything up and get any last data trickled in. So if this is on your radar, if we've reached out to you, and I don't, Tess knows more because she's been tracking emails, but maybe we have gotten information from you already, maybe we haven't. But I just wanted to touch on it. One big thing that I want to mention is, you know, this report isn't publicly available afterwards because we do have kind of private data pieces to it. But we do have information that we could give back to the individual fleet if asked for that. You know, we're asking for, you know, really the number of vehicles and the total mileage, and then the fuel type. But we could provide that back with actually what the estimated emissions reduction is. So I think that's important too. And you know, we are able to kind of use these. You see the pie chart there. That's one of the pieces that is rolled up by the DOE for us. And you know, we will show it publicly at an aggregated level with that. So again, just wanted to throw this on the radar. If this was something that we've asked you guys about, or if there's a fleet you know of that, you know, you think maybe they've got a great fleet of electric vehicles that we may not have on the radar, be happy to hear from them as well. This is what I mentioned earlier. So Clean Cities is going through a rebrand, and I'm sure some of you, again, maybe know this, others maybe don't. So we are Capital District Clean Communities, and we are a partnership with the Clean Cities program, which is our national kind of umbrella. And there's, I think 75 coalitions nationwide. And again, right, our goal or our purpose is to be local kind of grassroots support for alternative fuels. So last year was the 30th anniversary of the Clean Cities program. And they decided that that was a good time to update the brand, take a step back and, you know, kind of ask all the questions on if the brand and the logo and everything was still relevant. So this is the new brand. So Clean Cities and Communities now is the official name of our, we'll call it like the parent organization. And with the tagline, a US Department of Energy partnership to advance clean transportation nationwide. So, you know, really what this means for us here at this coalition, is very little. We are still going to be called the Capital District Clean Communities Coalition. Our brand and logo is not changing. You know, fortunately, we are already a Clean Communities Coalition, and that's really the change that they made with their branding. So it wasn't something that we needed to really address. Other coalitions are named different things that they maybe had to tweak and discuss a rebrand. I'm really just kind of discussing this more so because I wanted everyone to see this logo, and understand that, you know, going forward, if you see that logo and that brand, that is our partnership, from this coalition. And again, we always, you know, I sometimes say clean cities versus clean communities. You know, we are a Clean Communities Coalition. The national program is now called Clean Cities and Communities, but I just wanted to touch on that. Any questions, or I also may not have described our partnership with them the best. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. None, okay. So our strategic planning check-in, those of you that were on a lot of these calls last year know that we spent a lot of time developing our strategic plan, as that was kind of one of those subtasks that we talked about last year. That was a primary one that we had to be working on in 2023. So we submitted our final strategic plan to DOE on January 30th. And that is now kind of our guiding administrative document. And, you know, we laid out a bunch of different goals that we discussed in depth at these meetings. So my plan is to, at each one of these quarterly meetings, just kind of go through those, excuse me, and check in. You know, really these goals are kind of at an annual check-in level, but I figured that it would be good to just kind of review them at each meeting. And just for the SMART goals, we have already accomplished the first one that we laid out, and that was increasing our dedicated coalition staff by 1, with the addition of Tess. So I wanted to highlight that. And then we have our external programs and internal activities where we set goals for those as well. Program 1, education and outreach activities. So those are really those quarterly events and webinars that we're going to be doing. The idea is that we're going to have at least one webinar or activity each quarter. And then technical assistance. We want to at least help 2 different entities with a technical assistance project this year. And then for our internal activities, our first one is increasing coordination with post-agency staff. So that's kind of really on us to make sure that we're trying to incorporate more of our work with NPO work. I kind of mentioned that in some of the plans that we have for this year earlier. Second one would be develop a job posting for Clean City staff position, and we did that before hiring Tess. And then our third activity is increase Clean City staff training opportunities. And so we're working on that to get to a number of different training events this year. And that would be Tess and I at different kind of Clean Cities hosted training events. So that's our strategic planning check-in. Any questions or thoughts on that? Again, this is really, I just want to make sure that we're kind of touching base on what the document that we laid out last year. Hearing none. And so our final coalition update, again, we have a new staff member. Tess Strawshak. Tess is here today, at the meeting in person. I'm sure I know some of you have already met her. Tess is coming from us from the city of Cohoes, from municipal planning. But she's gonna be a key member of our coalition staff, hitting the ground running with kind of being the main point of contact for all of our annual report data, and also doing a big role in our event planning right off the bat here. So just wanted to make sure that you all knew Tess is now part of our team. Be aware, be on the lookout for emails from her. Feel free to email her with questions, as well as myself. But want to welcome Tess, and been doing a great job lately, and definitely hope that continues. So.
Thanks, Jacob.
Okay, so with that, want to leave some time. Anyone, kind of news around the table? Does anyone have any, electric vehicle or alt fuels updates, or latest news?
Just a quick update on the electric trolley, Hugh Albany. It's going well, but your earlier slide, I didn't jump in at the time, but your earlier slide really does touch upon it. Anytime we even have the smallest of issue with the electric trolley, it reminds me of that Spider-Man meme where everybody's pointing at each other. So really, when we have issues, it's like, is it a Ford issue? Is it an electric issue? Is it a chassis issue? Is it? So we do see a lot of that, and I almost believe that is based on some of that technical expertise, right? No one wants to kind of touch it, or they don't know, or maybe it's the other person, the other organization. So although it is performing well, very well, when there is an issue, there is a lot of hesitancy to know who the entity is that repairs the vehicle. And I reiterate, I think some of that is due to just lack of knowledge. So you're on the right path.
Jason, is that something, if we have an event like that, do you guys have techs that would be interested in going, or is most of your work kind of with the manufacturer, I guess, or the vendor? Depends.
Yeah, I mean, this last time it was it was like someone forgot oil in one of the differentials. I have no idea. It just was making clunky noises. So we sent it over to the Ford dealership, oh, it's a chassis issue. Oh, no, it's actually oil for the electric loop. You start talking language I don't know.
Right.
But I'll tell you, Motive has been awesome, totally awesome. I mean, they've sent their tech up from New Jersey 3-4 times on a moment's notice, come up here, take the vehicle. It's great, but yeah, it does. I mean, it's at the Ford dealership probably for about 2 or 3 weeks before we really got things moving. But it is a challenge. It is a challenge. But overall, again, the trolley is operating awesome. It's been a great addition for us. So other than the pointing of the fingers, all good.
Jacob and I had talked a little bit about doing like a listening session, which I think fits into the focus groups that he mentioned earlier. Coming from a municipality, I also experienced hurdles in getting, curbside EV chargers going, and sort of that Spider-Man meme really rings true. So that might be in the pipeline too. Getting these public entities together to talk about, issues we've all had.
Any other news around the table? I'm hearing none. With that, we can move on. This is our upcoming meetings for 2024. Next one anticipated for Thursday, June 27th. Our Q2 stakeholder meeting, so maybe put a block there for your calendar. And then with that, that's it. We're gonna work on getting these meeting minutes together and get the recording posted on our website, and we'll send those out probably sometime next week for an update. So with that, I think we're all done and meeting adjourned. Thanks,
Thank you so
everyone.
much for,
Online.
thank you for keeping it moving. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Good work.
Schedule an hour and a half and get done in an hour. That makes people happy.
Yeah,
All right, bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.